Hi, this is Mr. Mitchell. Today we're going to talk about Brazil. First of all, here's a list of the questions. Go ahead and write those down, and you get them as we go along. Brazil. Brazil is right here, and you can see it is the largest South American country. Brazil has more population than all other South American countries combined. Its gross domestic product, GDP, you may remember we've studied it, is large by far in South America. You may remember GDP is an indication of wealth. So that means that Brazil has more money going in, coming out, being used than any other country. Here's the Brazilian flag, and here's, well, just a looking picture that I thought I'd put. But anyway, its government is very similar to ours. It has a democracy, it has a president, it has an elected Congress, but it hasn't always been that way. Since Brazil persuaded Portugal to grant them independence, they have gone from having an emperor to then having a constitution. Then they went back to having a military dictator, and finally it is today's democracy.
Do you think it will change again?
Probably so. Well, anyway, let's take a look at some things Brazil is known for. Oh, I already talked about the Brazilian government. Let's talk about Brazilian products, and one of them is cars. Brazil is known for making and exporting automobiles. You can see this car brand name is Fiat. That's actually a European country. It's not a European country, it's a European company. But Brazil have people who make the cars that were originally from Europe. Same with Jaguars. That's just what they do. The products, they're very famous for food products. And outside of the United States, they export more food products than any nation on earth. And the most predominant food product Brazil exports is coffee. And there are coffee beans sitting right there. They also send large amounts of oranges, bananas, and corn to the world. Now, it sounds like Brazil is a wealthy country. It is, but like most wealthy countries, they do have problems with unemployment and inflation. And that's why I picked these pictures up here, because it's true that Brazil also has big problems with unemployment and inflation, and some of its people are in desperate need of some help as far as poverty line goes. Anyway, Portuguese established sugarcane plantations in northeastern Brazil. Northeastern Brazil is right up in here. Way back when Portugal was charged. And Portugal brought more slaves to Brazil to farm these sugarcane plantations than there were slaves in any other North or South American country. So as a result, now that slaves have been free for many years, most people in this area of Brazil are of African descent. These sugar plantations have also had an effect on the Brazil auto industry. You know, the Brazil auto industry, which is one of the most prominent in the world. Take a look at this chart here. Brazil actually has cars that run on sugar. Well, not all the cars, and it's not like you pour sugar in the gas tank, but their ethanol is made out of sugar. You know, our ethanol here in the United States is made out of corn. Ethanol is not the gasoline, but it's a gasoline substitute. And here it's very common for about 10% of our gasoline that we pump in our cars to be ethanol. In Brazil, they make ethanol out of sugar because sugar cane is very prominent there. But look here. Cars that are able to run just on ethanol is very high. So you can see here 1.72 million out of 2.39 million cars in general can run on ethanol. So that's something that's a little bit different than it is here in the United States. 4 out of 5 Brazilians live in cities. Many sections of Brazil are almost uninhabitable in the Amazon rainforest. A vast majority of Brazilians, 200 million people live in Brazil. A vast majority of Brazilians live near the coast in Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro and cities just such as that. Now, I have a chart here about largest populations in the world, and look where Brazil is. Number 5 in the world with about 200 million people. With about 200 million people. United States is number 3, above places even such as Russia and Japan, and way above Mexico. Mexico has just over 100,000 people. Brazil has 200,000 people. And the United States has just above 300,000 people. And you can see what we were talking about earlier. Much of Brazil's population is going to be on the coast here. Not a whole lot of darkness in here, except right out in here. Right out here is an area, a city that was established in 1956 to be the new capital of Brazil. It is Brasilia. And you can see how it is spelled right here. Brazilians were hoping that that would encourage more people to move inland. And what it did, it encouraged more people to move to Brasilia, because now Brasilia is facing overcrowding, just like Rio de Janeiro and Sao Paulo are also. Brazil's official language is Portuguese. Most Brazilians are Catholic, just like many in Latin America. Same thing is true for Brazilians, which means they also celebrate Lent, which has 4 days before Lent is the Carnival parades. But anyway, speaking more of Catholics, more Catholics live in Brazil than in any country in the world. This has a huge population of people in the first place. There are a rising number of people that are non-Catholic, non-Catholic Christians. In 1940, there were 5% of people who were non-Catholic Christians, and in the year 2000, there were 20% of non-Catholic Christians. Well, anyway, we mentioned that Brazil celebrates Carnival. Now, it's pretty easily known why Carnival is celebrated, because it's 4 days before Lent, and Lent is the 40 days before Easter. And that's something that's celebrated very widely throughout the Catholic world. Here is some pictures of people in Carnival, and you can see this is not just your regular old plan it one day, throw it the next day type of party. I mean, these are very, very elaborate costumes. And look at this float. Look at the size of that float, and all the people down here in these huge headbands and costumes. There are really only a few people that aren't dressed up. Now, this is the Carnival celebration in Rio de Janeiro, and look at all the people. I mean, this is like showing up for the World Series here. There are people in 1, 2, 3 decks of stands, and it's going to be the case over here also. And you'll see this a little bit better in the next slide. Yeah, here's where you have all these people who are lined up on either side of this parade route. And it goes all the way up to the upper deck on either side. And this is how Carnival is in Rio de Janeiro. You have these huge, elaborate floats and costumes and people, and they have this Carnival competition, you might say, in Rio de Janeiro, and it truly is a big deal. Soccer is popular throughout the world, but soccer in Brazil truly is some of the best soccer in the world. They are frequent winners and frequent finalists in the World Cup. Millions play and watch the game, and some of the most famous players ever, Ronaldo and Pelé, are from Brazil. And you can see Pelé in his Brazilian shirt back probably during the World Cup many years ago. In fact, Brazil is hosting the 2014 World Cup. And finally, ancient Brazilians were the first to make rubber, as in rubber for tires. And of all places, rubber comes from a tree. It's a true native tree to Brazil. It's used not only in tires, but in eraser and chewing gum. Well, I hope you've learned a little bit about Brazil.